feels so inconvenient sometimes to deal with it. Like I know when we send like encrypted messages, like sometimes even clients are like, it's so annoying. It's like I'm having a hard time opening that.
There's always this constant struggle between convenience and security.
Yeah.
And finding a way to go ahead and balance that. And hopefully with AI, we'll be able to get a little bit better.
Information presented on this program is believed to be factual and up-to-date, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, and it should not be regarded as complete analysis of the subjects discussed. Discussions and answers to questions do not involve the rendering of personalized investment advice, but are limited to the dissemination of general information. A professional advisor should be consulted before implementing any of the options presented. Encompass More Asset Management LLC is a registered investment advisor with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or is excluded or exempted from registration requirements.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Ducharme Wealth Management Podcast. Today we have a really high value episode that I think so many of you can get some useful information out of. I'm joined in the studio today by one of my friends, John Siggard. He's the owner of Soteria Technical Solutions. It's the #1 rated managed service provider here in Southern Utah. They also recently just won the Soteria Award for 2024, which is a national award, putting them in one of the top 25 recognized companies for managed service providers. Which is a fancy way of kind of talking about IT guys, if you will. He is on the National Security Council for managed service providers. He does a lot of industry work that way with high-level operators in the space, and he has over 3 decades of experience in the industry. He's got a lot of knowledge to help us, and today we are talking about the 3 things that everyday people can do and take action on to help protect themselves from the cybersecurity and cybercrime fraud that is happening out there. So if you want to help protect yourself from falling victim to some of these scams and frauds that are going on and targeting people, go ahead, give it a listen, and consider taking action on some of the things we talk about today. Let's jump into the episode. There is a lot of stuff going on in the cybersecurity world.
Yes, there is.
And there's kind of two facets. There's like if you own a business and you're dealing with, customer information or whatever, there's a huge realm of cybersecurity and protections and precautions that you need to take if you're a business. Then there's a whole nother realm of the consumer side, just like average people getting taken advantage of through scams and fraud, that is so hard to detect to like the untrained eye.
Correct.
Like it's getting
good. Harder and harder.
It's like scary.
Yeah.
And we're no longer talking like, oh, somebody sent you, somebody, got you going on an email and, they're saying they're the prince of Nigeria and send them some, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that now people are like, oh, it's so obvious. Like who's going to deal with that? It's like, it's really high conviction stuff that there is people and people I've known that are like generally pretty sophisticated, savvy people that you would think like really know better. But the stuff becomes so targeted, so intricate that they still fall for it. And it's oftentimes no longer like, oh, you're out $200 or, they got your debit card information and got a couple $100 out of your account or something. It's like, they convince you to wire transfer $100,000 somewhere or a couple $100,000 that they intercepted. And it's like, it's like life changing.
Right.
Fraud.
So one of the most common attacks that we've seen in 2024, is we're seeing a lot of people that are hacking into email accounts.
Okay.
And in the past, like you got hacked and you knew it instantly. It was like you had the WannaCry virus or, Irina or like they had these viruses that you're like, oh, I got hit by that. You had an elf dancing across your screen. Like, you knew instantly. Nowadays, hackers are trying to get in and stay undetected. And they're just harvesting data, waiting for the right opportunity to go ahead and strike. So last year we had one company that they had an attack where the client, where they received an email, they were in negotiations, a pretty big contract.
Yeah.
And then they were talking, in one of the emails, they mentioned that their daughter had surgery.
Yeah.
And so when the hackers sent the email to request the money, they mentioned the surgery. They talked about past conversations and everything like that. And so, the person who wired that money was completely unsuspecting. They were like, oh yeah, this is totally the person I've been talking to.
They're talking about a conversation we've had.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is now with AI, like we're starting to see some like phone calls. Like people will go ahead and they'll get a few minutes of voice conversation, and with AI you can actually duplicate that person's voice. And so I had a residential client recently who got a call from her grandson, and he was in jail, got pulled over, making his one phone call that he was allowed to make, and said, hey, can you wire, $10,000 for bail? And she rushed to the bank, went through, did this whole process. Got through, she got home, and she happened to get a phone call from him, just checking up on her. And it wasn't even him. Like she wired that money, and because it was wired, there wasn't really a whole lot they could do.
It's gone.
So, it's just gone.
Terrifying stuff. So I know that we the last couple of years we've gone to we do so much now with encrypted email, and we try to take all these precautions, but it is so tough. And I've seen particularly in real estate, there's so much of this that goes on where you're wiring funds for closing on, buying or selling a home, and they intercept this stuff, and, everything looks legit, but they change, one digit in those wire instructions. And now instead of going to the title company, it's going to their bank account they set up just for the purpose of intercepting these funds.
Correct.
And so it all looks legit. And, anyways, terrifying stuff. So what I really want to get into today is if you're an average, we're not talking to you if you own a bank or if you, just are running a business. It's like the average person, what are the 3 things that people can do to help minimize their exposure to this and help save themselves from, either being targeted or defending off some of these, attempts at fraud.
Right. So I think first thing is to kind of assess your level of risk, because you talked about some different tiers right there, right? So there's average Joe, they don't have a company that they're running. They're just trying to survive. They're working, and they want to make sure that their retirement's protected. They don't get taken advantage of, stuff like that. Then there's a lot of people that, have side gigs. They're running a business on the side, or maybe they're, just a small business owner. And so they'll have a slightly different level of risk that they need to go ahead and make sure that they're protected on. And then there's people that are running, a fairly successful company that is their retirement plan. And that's where you kind of need to have a slightly higher level of security to kind of protect against those things. So let's start with kind of the more residential side of things, like some simple things that you can do on your own. Make sure that you have 2-factor authentication enabled on everything: email, social media. Your bank should automatically have that set up, but if it doesn't, then reach out to them and say, hey, what do I need to do in order to get this set up? Just in case, any of your listeners aren't super familiar with 2-factor authentication, that's just when you go to log in, it sends a text message or makes you read off a code, or type in a code that's on your phone. So that you're verifying that you have 2 pieces. You've got your password and the code that got sent to your phone. And so that's just a slightly higher level of security. There's ways hackers can go ahead and get around that, but at the very least, that's something that you should go ahead and do. A second thing you should do is try and get your information off of the web. So a lot of people have heard about the dark web, but that's where people go to buy and sell information that they use in order to steal your identity or start harvesting data in order to target you for an attack. Everybody in all 3 of those categories should be trying to remove their stuff from the web.
How does that work though? Like if my information's already out there,
Yeah. So
how do you get it? I can't just say like, request dark web, please stop selling my information.
Correct. So, fortunately, the dark web, people will go through and they'll buy data, but they want the most recent data as possible. So if you can get it, the way people get information on the dark web, there's two ways that they go through and get it. One is they'll just go through there's what they call data brokers, right? Mm-hmm. And most of that data is gotten a legitimate way. You go and you sign up for, a newsletter and you put in certain information or they'll scrub your Facebook page or stuff like that. And all that information that's public, they'll just put
I've been so shocked the last year, like with that new privacy law update, I think it was like when you get on a website and it says you have to allow the cookies now and everything.
Right.
And you hit manage preferences and you go in and it's like right there. It's like, allow us to sell your data. And it's like, no. But if you would have just hit like, oh yeah, accept, I'm not on this web page. It's a clean page, whatever. I don't care. But you're allowing them to monetize you and your data right there. And so that's what you're saying is like, that's how a lot of times your data gets out.
Correct. Yeah. And most people don't realize that you can actually click on that customize and choose what things you're allowing them to do. Yeah. They just assume that like with everything else, that if I'm going to utilize your product or service, then I need to agree to all of your terms.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case.
Yeah.
So,
okay. So back to so how do you go about, so my information's out there.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm guilty of I've been to websites where I've hit, allow, and there's probably something in there in the deep terms and conditions I didn't read.
Right.
It's so my information's out there. How do I go about getting, these data brokers to
you can
scrub it? You
can Google it and find who the big data brokers are and go and request it. And it takes a long time to go ahead and get that done. Our company offers a service where we go through and manage that for you. So that's something that you can do. There's other companies out there that'll perform that service to go ahead and scrub your data off of the internet. And so by doing that, that allows less to show up on the dark web and less frequently. So you become less and less of a target. And one of the side benefits to that is as you start doing that, you stop receiving more of those spam calls. I'm sure you get them as much,
I'll pay any price, John, for those to stop.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that you can do in order to protect yourself, and that's something that everybody should do.
Okay.
So
how ironic is it that I've actually gotten ads for companies offering that service of scrubbing your data, and they probably are targeting me because
your data's out there.
Because my data got sold to be out. It's ironic.
Yeah.
So interesting business model, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
that's one of the things that we're talking about common attacks. A lot of things that a lot of the senior community gets hit by is a pop-up on the screen that says, hey, this is Microsoft, your computer's infected, don't turn it off, call this number immediately. And you call up this number and some person with an accent goes through and says, oh yeah, I'll just type in these numbers, hit these keys.
And they're taking over your entire computer.
And they're logging into your computer and you're thinking that it's Microsoft. And I've seen so many clients that have gone through and they end up paying, it starts off with, just $50 and then, for $350 and then, for $600 and then, for $1,200. And it's like at some point somebody says, oh, wait, maybe I should stop paying more money and figure out what's going on here.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is there's actually a couple of those companies that do that are legal businesses. And it's legal to say, hey, you clicked on a pop-up, you called our number, you're buying our security services. I think it just gives the industry a bad name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so two-factor authentication. Try to get your data scrubbed from the internet as best you can.
As best as you can.
Which you can do on your own.
You can do on your own.
If you have, the time, efforts, or whatever, or there's services that you can buy
Correct.
to help you with that. Okay. What's the third thing that people?
So another thing you can do is get a DNS filter.
Okay.
So if you put a DNS filter on, you're going to get less of those.
And what does DNS stand for?
Great. Now you're quizzing me. DNS is
like, what is it?
Domain name services. I'll have to look that up. It's just,
I've heard the term. I just don't I don't know what a DNS. I'm not a tech guy, right?
Yeah,
this is why we pay people like you.
Yeah. So it's the domain name registries. So it's what translates the domain name. So if you type in google.com, it's actually going out to an IP address of 8.8.8.
Yeah. Domain name system.
Domain system.
Quick
Correct.
Google.
Thanks, Mallory. Yeah, because it's like google.com in the actual like tech sphere is not actually google.com. It's like you're saying
it's an IP address.
Yeah, it's whatever, a 15-digit code with a bunch of periods and numbers and whatever. And it just, what we see is google.com. And so the DNS is what's filtering out. It's like what's a legit registered.
Correct. Yeah. And so you'll get less of those false. So if you type in like bestbuy.com, but you type in one too many Y's or something like that, then that may take you to a wrong website. And so sometimes what'll happen is somebody will hack a website and change one of the links on the website. So you could go to like, the federal government's website and click on a link and you're thinking, well, it's safe and legitimate. But if somebody hacks that website, changes the link, it may take the government 15 minutes to find that and change that. But by then, 1,000 people have clicked on that link.
Federal government website could take 15 years, but
it could, yeah. But small businesses definitely takes a lot longer. So
and so if you click on that link, like what have the hackers or nefarious parties done? Like where do they route that to?
Yeah.
Typically?
So a lot of times the most common one is where it'll pop up a message saying, oh, you've been hacked or something like that. Yeah. Less frequently you'll see, but it still happens is, you could click on a link and it'll try and download something onto your computer and download a nefarious program. Okay. And you can go through and you can get, like if somebody downloads a bot that allows it to go ahead and scrub your data and just upload it to the internet, that's pretty bad. A pretty common thing we see in businesses. And that's one of the other areas you get stuff in from the dark web or put into the dark web is these bots that go around scrubbing, trying to find information that they can just upload, and then a hacker will go ahead and buy that data and say, oh, this is somebody I can go ahead and target. Yeah. So.
Okay. And so like, how do you get that DNS filter and what does that filter do then when you were to click on that, now nefarious link or mistype the website name or whatever?
Yeah. So if you have a DNS filter, it will go through and it'll have a registry of all of the known good domains. Okay. And then if it tries to go to a known bad domain, it'll just block it. Okay. And keep you protected.
And is that typically something like you can download onto your computer for free, like
free
service?
There's services like OpenDNS that you can. It takes a little bit. Like there's a lot of tutorials on how to do that on your own. Okay. If you do have, like, obviously that's something that we include with our services. But
so like if you're not super tech savvy, chances are you probably want to help. Maybe pay some kind of technology consultant or IT, company to maybe help you set one up and get access to one.
Yeah. But if you have just a little bit of knowledge, you could probably figure it out with the tutorials that they have out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
My gosh, that is, so I think those are three, like this whole topic like scares the absolute like living daylights out of me. Because I've just seen it be so disastrous for people. And on the other hand, it's like, feels so inconvenient sometimes to like deal with it. Like I know when we send like encrypted messages, like sometimes even clients are like, it's so annoying. It's like, I'm having a hard time opening that or something. It's like, well, I'm not going to send it on, like, I'm not going to like risk your stuff being out there. You know, it's
right.
like,
yeah.
You know, it's like you want to risk it. Fine. I
There's
can't
always
stop you, but like, I'm not going to do it.
There's always this constant struggle between convenience and security.
Yeah.
And, you know, finding a way to go ahead and balance that. And hopefully with AI, we'll be able to get a little bit better. Like there's going to be a period of time where it's going to be less convenient, but there should be some advancements on the other area as well that make it so that, for example, you know, it used to be you had to type in this long code in order to log into your phone. Now you just look at your phone and it says, yeah, that's you.
Yeah.
And so there should be some advancements that come along that way as well that
sure
makes it easier for you to be more secure without having to jump through all of these other hoops. But in the meantime, you don't want to lose everything because, you know, you didn't want to type in a code.
The AI cybersecurity arms race.
Yeah. I mean, really it is. It's kind of exciting. Like, I was thinking about it over the past couple of months. Like, there's not a whole lot of industries out there where you're actively fighting against somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's every time we come up with something, they come up with something, and like it's just this battle of figuring out, okay, what's the best way to go ahead and protect our clients in a way that the other team can't break in and figure it out. So
I guess that's why they call it cybersecurity.
Yeah.
You know? Okay. Well, recapping. 2-factor authentication on everything you can put it on.
Yes.
As inconvenient as it might seem or feel, like, yeah, it's table stakes. Like that's like the basics, you know, like that's not going to ensure anything, but it's going to maybe filter out some of like the weaker scammers,
right?
You know, like it prevents you from being the lowest hanging fruit maybe.
Right.
But it doesn't keep you from being desirable fruit still nonetheless. So, you know, the next layer is like, try to get your data scrubbed. So, hire, you know, a company or a service that's legitimate if you need to,
right.
Engage with some professionals. And the last thing is trying to get that DNS filter on your computers. Is that something that people put on their phones as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, get protected that way to just help you avoid, you know, visiting bad websites that would then kind of reset all the issues that you're trying to clean up in the first two steps maybe.
And then I guess the number one thing you can do is just kind of just take a minute and think and, you know, say, wait, is this something that I was requesting? Like when somebody calls in and says, hey, you know, you just won, you know, a sweepstakes. I'm going to give you $1,000, but you got to pay $45 in order to get it. Like,
you just have,
wait a minute. Why do I have to, you know, or if you have somebody that calls, like the example we talked about with the grandson that was asking for bail money, you know, say, okay, how do I confirm this information? Especially if you're dealing with a large transaction.
Yeah.
And that's different to everybody. Some people it's $100, some people it's $10,000. But like anytime you're dealing with a larger transaction, have a second form of verification. Kind of like the 2-factor authentication. If they call and talk to you or you get an email, like find a way to reach out to that company directly. Don't use a number that's on the email. Mm-hmm. Like Google them, find out their company information and call them directly and just verify that that's what it is.
Yeah. I've always encouraged people, and I don't like, this is the best advice I kind of felt like I could come up with for this stuff is like, when something just doesn't like, if it doesn't look right, feel right, 100%, it just, there's something, you get a gut feeling, whatever, like just stop what you're doing and try to call somebody, you know, that you trust, that is like very emotionally grounded or disconnected from the situation. It's like, you know, so if, you know, you think your grandson's in jail, it's like, don't go call his mom, but you might call your brother and say like, I just got a call from my grandson. Like, you know him. And he says he's in jail and I got to wire this money. Like, is this like, am I not thinking this through right now? Like, can you help me? Because it's just like an emotionally disconnected person from the situation. Hopefully they would be able to say, I don't know, that sounds kind of fishy. Like,
right.
What steps do we take now? You know, and I think just having that outside voice sometimes is like very beneficial.
Right.
to help prevent the disasters, right? But you got to sometimes identify like ahead of time, like who's my call. Like for me, sometimes you're my call. You know what I mean?
Yep. We've answered a couple of calls like that.
And like sometimes it's like, I don't even want to open this text. Like I've actually got one I meant to ask you about the other day when I saw you. I keep getting a text message from like on track delivery and it says like my delivery can't get, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is like, I didn't order anything that I think is coming from on track.
Right.
But it's like so persistent. It's like, I'm just going to ask John about this before I just like swipe and like delete, report junk. It's like, I'm 99%, but like, dude, is like and it sounds like you're already shaking your head going like, yeah, dude, that's like a total known, that's out there. We see this all the time.
Yeah, we do. You know, we do see that. And so I guess that's another, I know you were looking for 3 real good ones, but anytime you get an email that looks like Symantec renewal or UPS or On Track or something like that, if it's an email, check and see who it's being sent from.
Yeah.
Because if it's coming from a Gmail address or a Yahoo address or something like that, Symantec's not going to send it from that way. Like I've seen some things that look like you pull up an official email from Amazon and the scam email and they look the exact same, but you look at who it's being sent from and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, it's not going to come from Symantec at gmail.com.
I've actually seen where it comes from, like instead of, customer service at Amazon.com, it's like customer service at Amazon, but the O and the Z is flipped or something. And it's .co instead of .com or, just like some real, it's like even more difficult to catch that way. But, like whoever your trusted people are, like just, it's not bad in my opinion to just start slowing down in life on some of this stuff. Like it's so like we get taken advantage of because we are so quick to just do, like we're in this instant access informational era. It's always at your fingertips. It's always so easy. It's always, like, oh, so routine, and just like slow it down.
Yeah.
Slow it down. Ask the guy at the desk next to you, call your IT person, whatever it needs to be. Especially before you ever like send money. That's like, you know what I mean? It's like, if you're sending money somewhere, here's like the last thought I have. If you're sending money somewhere and you like walk into the bank and you just like openly tell them exactly what you think is going on. And if the words coming out of your mouth make you sound crazy, like the bank is going to tell you you're crazy and they are going to intentionally try to be that voice of reason. Right. And here's the thing is like, if it's all legit, they're going to help you go through that process and make sure it's legit.
Right. They'll have ways to go ahead and try and verify.
Right. They're not going to completely just stop you if it's legit. You know what I mean? Like a bank is not interested in just making your life hard for no reason. Right. But a bank should theoretically say like, okay, have you verified these, instructions independently with the party it's going to? Like, can you tell me more? Like, why are you sending these funds? And it's like, you're trying to wire funds to the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Like, why don't we just call them and verify? Like, we'll just verify the instructions are right. Let us help you. It's like, and in doing that, I think that is what a bank sometimes is for, is to help protect you. But like, be willing to let yourself sound like a crazy person. If that's what you perceive is actually going on, just tell it as you think is going on, explain it to people around you and say like, this is what's going on. And this is why I'm trying to do what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, it's much better to find out that you were being scammed before you send the money.
Yes.
Than to have to, swallow a pill and lose all your money. And then also people are going to find out.
It's better to sound like a crazy person and have everyone around you go, you're sounding like a crazy person, than to be like, I'm going to try to just keep this, private and discreet. Right. And then be like, oh, well, now I also lost all my money.
Yeah.
So, okay. I think that's some really good takeaways. If somebody has more questions, and they need help with some of the stuff or whatever, what are some good ways to get started. Like how can somebody maybe find you for your help? I think you guys deal a lot with commercial business.
Yeah.
But I think you deal a little bit with, personal. I think you kind of call it like residential, like just, retail kind of people.
Yeah.
Where does somebody find you to pick your brain some more on this stuff?
So our website is stsutah.com. Company is Superior Technical Solutions. You can call us at 435-272-9062.
Okay.
We usually have somebody on call to take questions and help people out.
Cool.
Can I actually pose a question?
Yeah,
if that's okay?
Absolutely.
So Blake and I were in Vegas for something I can't remember. And we got our cards skimmed somewhere, either a restaurant or I don't know.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Vegas, our card got skimmed. Is
Classic.
there anything you can do about that?
Is there anything you can do
to prevent
to prevent that?
Yeah.
So a lot of wallets nowadays they'll have an RFID blocker. So that will prevent people from getting close to you and stealing your card information. But if you hand your card over to like somebody at Starbucks and they have the ability to go ahead and scan it, there's not really a whole lot you can do in order to prevent that type of thing from happening.
That's actually a really good question, Mallory. And what I like, this is why, like the Dave Ramsey kind of side of me, sometimes if people are having a hard time with money, like I'm really like, just use a debit card, just use cash, I'm kind of anti-credit card if people can't use credit cards appropriately. However, if you can handle your money like at all, I love credit cards because of not like, I don't care about the points. Like I could not care less about points and perks and all this stuff. What I care about is like if somebody skims my card and I'm like, oh, that wasn't me. And I call up American Express or, whoever the credit card company is. And I'm like, that wasn't me. They're like, all right, reversed.
Yeah.
It's like, so my liability is incredibly limited by the use of credit cards. And that is, I think, like the unspoken benefit. And so that's why when people are like, well, hey, we offer, a 3% discount, or, you don't have to pay the processing fees if you use a debit card, or if you use cash, or if you, put in your bank information and then we just ACH the funds. I'm like, I'll pay the 3%. I just don't want the liability. Like, I want to know that my money is always safe, and the credit card is a line of defense. And I think that is actually a step of like, what can you do to prevent this? Because if somebody skims your debit card information, it's like way harder to deal with.
Right. And so the key there is that you have a credit card that's for travel.
Yeah.
That you use for travel or online purchases. Like, it's not something that you have everything on, because when you do have to go through and change all of your auto pays and everything like that,
that becomes a wealth management conversation. I have these conversations with people, with clients that care to have them. There is a lot of strategy in that about having different cards for different purposes. What I'll always try to remind people though is like, with great power comes great responsibility. So the more complex you kind of make your financial life around that, the more chance of you sort of screwing it up. So you have to be very disciplined on your processes there. But you can pick up some additional, largely it would seem intangible benefits, but benefits nonetheless.
Yeah.
So
great question.
Great question. You do not chime in enough, Mallory. Anyone that's listening is like,
I know. Sometimes I'm like, I should ask, and then I don't.
This is Mallory. This is Mallory, the producer, popping in.
Hello, everybody. So, John, your recommendation would just be, like, if I hand my physical card over to somebody to pay for a meal or something, there's not really much I can do about that. Just kind of be diligent about logging into your bank account every day, making sure everything looks good.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
I would say it doesn't even have to be every day, Mallory. Like
once a month.
Absolutely, you should be reconciling yourself every month.
Yeah.
But if you if you're on a trip and then you get home and you just look through the expenses from your trip or something, make sure nothing's amiss.
Then it could take 4 or 5 days for some transactions to actually start processing.
Right. So, I think it's one of those things that, every day might be a little bit right? It's like checking your investment accounts. Like every day is like all of a sudden you're like,
You start
it
adding
starts
stress
consuming
in
your life. But somewhat
just
frequently, you should
checking
just
for fraud all the time.
somewhat frequently like do it. And then I find like some institutions are pretty good about just flagging stuff as like, hey, this is potential. Like I get stuff from Chase that'll be like, this is fraud. And I'll like, I call my banker at Chase and I'm like, I'm traveling. And they're like, okay. It's like no big deal, but I could have like easily been like, nope, not me.
Yeah.
And they just handle it all. So I think if you are somebody that's even concerned, I think you can call into a lot of these companies and just say like, hey, just, I don't have any major, like I have no travel plans this year. I have no travel. Like, please heighten the security on my account. Like if something looks fraudulent, like just stop it.
Yeah.
It goes back to the conversation about like the balancing, like the inconvenience with security, because all of a sudden you might find yourself on that unexpected trip or trying to make that large purchase. And it's like cards declined. And you're like, what the heck? I have all this money available, like on the line. It's like, no, there should be no issue. And it's like the bank's shutting it down as potential fraud because you called and said like, hey, I don't have any intention of, utilizing this or whatever. And so they heighten the security and now you got to call them and just say, hey, no, this is legit. It's me. And they'll try to verify it. So into that, I will end with every once in a while, check your credit report and maybe freeze your credit. Whole nother episode though.
Yeah.
So definitely appreciate your time, John. I know you're a busy guy. And hopefully people got some value out of this and can take a couple steps here to try to protect themselves in a meaningful way.
Yep.
So,
all right. Thank you. Appreciate it.